Hey everyone, it's Lindsey Baker here on the Action Hour for a very special Tuesday broadcast because I am here with Jade Ara of Stop YULIN podcast. I'm so excited. I'm getting all discombobulated on YouTube. Yes, we have some good news, but we need you to take action. Actually, the CDC is going to put a ban on, it's going to take back the ban on bringing animals into the U.S., correct? Is that correct?
Well, it's actually the CDC, the Center for Disease Control, enacted a ban, an outright ban, blanket ban on 113 countries, including China, Vietnam, Cambodia, Thailand, a lot of dog meat trade nations. On July 14th, it came into effect, and it was strictly on dogs. So that ban is now, we have the breaking news. It really came out. I saw it on No Dogs Left Behind website, and they said that there's now a bipartisan agreement with strong support to lift the ban and to actually allocate $3 million to the CDC in order to have a proper screening of the dogs that are coming into the U.S. to avoid rabies.
Yeah, here's the press release from today. And we are going to ask everyone to please make this phone call because you have to do it now, right?
Yes, absolutely. That's the number to call. And we urge everyone to call their House of Representatives switchboard and leave a message for your elected official to vote in favor of this amendment. So that's the message from No Dogs Left Behind. It's on their website, it's on their social media page. So go see it and please take action.
Yeah, we actually have that, and we'll show it a little bit later, but I think we should take everybody back now through everything. But before we do that, and we get into all this amazing video footage that you gave me, so many questions will be answered for people about what's going on with the laws right now, who are the main players that are doing the rescue, what to look out for if you want to adopt a dog from YULIN, and so many other things. So we're going to jump right into that. But I thought you maybe want to give, because you have this wonderful podcast that you do, which is a lot of work, I know.
Yes.
And people can watch it. So do you want to just talk a little bit about how you got started in that? And then we'll jump into all the news and information.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me on your show again, Lindsey. It's great. Basically, I started the Stop YULIN podcast. That's what I called it. It's Stop YULIN. I started it in the fall of 2019. Because there was nothing like it, there's so many podcasts out there on different subjects, and I was looking for information because I heard about the dog cat meat trade, and I saw quickly that there was a lot of misinformation online, and I wanted to talk to people that are actually there in the countries that know, that have insight to share with us. And mostly it's educational. So the podcast was started in October of 2019. I've had I think 38 interviews to date. Not all have been published because I publish monthly. I have a full-time job, and this is a tremendous amount of work. Yeah. But it's really, I'm so happy that I did this because I've connected with amazing people. I've learned about great rescue groups, and most importantly, I've found the proper solutions for us. As foreigners, we often feel disempowered to do anything to help the dogs and cats in Asia. And through my guests, we always talk about the strategies, what do you think we as foreigners can do to really help the cause? Yeah. And, it's no surprise that, a lot of it has to do with donations. You have to support the groups that are in those countries, helping them. That includes Chinese activists, foster, adopt, volunteer, share. If you can't, donate any money, then share the post, raise awareness in your communities, and so on and so forth. So everyone that wants to watch the podcast, it's on YouTube. It's the only one. If you Google Stop YULIN podcast, it's the only thing.
Right. So you just have to put in Stop YULIN podcast. We had that banner up. Here we go. There it is. I'll leave that up for a few minutes here. That's awesome that you're doing that, and it's so great to get information. And I know that you vet the information You're very diligent and you do your research. So it's really you're a great resource to go to. So let's jump into this. Boy, a lot's been going on in China. I understand there was a typhoon, and unfortunately, one of the two, first of all, our hearts go out to the people of China.
Yes.
Millions trapped without fresh food and water for days. Are they in any, have you heard any updates on that?
Well, the only updates I've heard is that, yeah, the death count is at 58 about. It really hit the south coast of China first, and then now on Sunday, it really hit the east coast of China, so Shanghai, that area. And unfortunately, it did hit Henan province. And this is where No Dogs Left Behind have one of their two sanctuaries. And so they had to evacuate dogs. They had to try to get rid of the water. I mean, there was water up to here. They had to put dogs in cages. You can just imagine how hard this is. And so if you have it, the capability, please try to donate, because they really need help trying to, get back their sanctuary in good order.
Yes, and we'll be putting up in a few minutes, we'll be putting up their link to their website. You can come back for all the links. They'll be there at the end of the show. I'll be putting them up. I'll have all the links up by then if we don't get them up during the show. So the first clip that we're going to look at is with Jill Stewart. And it says here that she rescued and got adopted over 600 dogs.
She's amazing. I mean, Jill Stewart started her foundation, which is called China Rescue Dogs, back in the spring of 2019, right before the big pandemic. And today they have adopted out 600 dogs that they brought back from China. She first rescued a dog in Shanghai, her own dog, a golden retriever, and she saw the need. She actually went to China as opposed to just waiting for their dog to arrive here. She went to China, she got on a flight, she went to the shelter that she had connected with, she established a rapport with, and she saw the condition that these dogs are in. It's thousands of dogs with no food, no water. It's horrible. They only have a handful of people looking after these dogs in shelters. So she was moved, and she started her foundation quickly thereafter. And 600 dogs in that short amount of time is unheard of. It's really a feat.
Let's look at the clip, and then we'll talk about it some more.
In China, it's more of like the older generation, would you say, that consumes dog meat on a more regular basis, and that are keeping that tradition alive, if you will?
Yeah, I think you have two problems, actually. I think you have the meat trade industry, and you have no outlet like the SPCAs or the Humane Society or spay and neuter clinics or vet care. So you have multiple issues. So although they're on the meat trucks, in my opinion, I struggle with dogs living in horrific conditions with skin diseases, no food, no shelter, and there's, 1,000 dogs. I'm not sure that that is a better life.
No.
So there are multiple problems. You have these communist shelters run by 2 or 3 people managing thousands of dogs, and really no way to spay and neuter the dogs. Dogs that should be euthanized humanely don't get euthanized.
Yeah.
So you have really a lot of work that I believe that the International Humane Society and large organizations need to try to work with the communist government to help really start to sterilize some of these animals.
About you, Ryan, how did you react to China's Ministry of Agriculture coming out with that statement?
I thought it was great that something was being done. Okay.
Yeah.
But as Jill said before, it's about education and keeping the education going. And, if we have spay and neuter clinics that go over there, we have veterinarians without borders that are allowed in, and having proper care taking place and making sure there's a change that actually does take place. Will it take time? Absolutely. Will it be overnight? No. But it's a step in the right direction. That it takes people like ourselves to educate people about it, and then keep that momentum going.
So, what can pretty much people can do to help get this word out, of course, is to share out this video and to make the phone call right now that you see going along the bottom of the screen here. But it's really interesting. Talk to us a little bit about the gentleman. Who was the gentleman? I think we're going to see him a little bit later again.
Yeah, no, actually, that was my podcast with China Rescue Dogs, and it's really Jill Stewart and Ron McDonald. He's the vice president, and he came on board very quickly. He adopted one of her dogs, and then they were talking, and he said, listen, I want to get involved, and, you know, he's been amazing. They're all volunteers. None of them get paid. Not one penny that is donated goes to them. It really goes to the rescue and the flights, which have been astronomically expensive since COVID-19. One pallet that has at most like 25 large dogs or 45 smaller dogs costs $50,000 US to fly. Okay, so this has been an extremely challenging environment. The COVID-19 really hurt these rescue groups, and the CDC ban was like, you know, the nail in the coffin, because at that point they can't even fly the dogs out anymore. So they have the overhead, they have to keep, you know, funding these operations in China. It's a disaster. So we're very happy that there's a possibility of lifting the ban.
Wow, that's going to be amazing, and we really do need people to make that phone call. But this is the website for the China Rescue Dogs, and you can go to the website if you can make a donation, share out their videos, all the things that Jade has said just a moment ago. And it's so important that we do this and we do take action.
Yeah.
Is there anything else you want to say about this particular clip that we're looking at, or would you like to go to the next one?
As you saw, Jill started out by saying that when she went to Shanghai and she saw the shelter and the conditions, I mean, dogs are like dying, you know, like literally they don't have vet care. They don't have any of this. So she saw the need. And like she said, it's not just meat dogs, you know, like it's not just dogs on a meat truck. It's a problem widespread all over China. That country, as far as they have progressed economically, they're still so behind with animal welfare. They don't even have animal protection laws in their country to this day. We're in 2021. It's a point of frustration, and I know that so many Chinese would like the government to take action. And in fact, for the last 14 years, every year they propose animal legislation, you know, animal rights legislation, and it always gets overpassed because it's not a priority for the government. So.
Right, and we're going to talk about some legislation a little bit down the road from here, but also she was saying that the spay and neuter programs need to be put in place, and asking international organizations like the big international animal welfare organizations and why not other corporations as well, to step in and help out and maybe ask China. And it's a very touchy subject because the Chinese people are noble people and they're proud, and they don't want people coming in from elsewhere telling them how to run things, but it's critical. And now it's becoming a health issue.
But I also want to mention that Humane Society International has changed the way they help these rescue groups in China. They don't necessarily step in themselves, but they support financially and with proper training and resources the activists in China. Spay-neuter clinics have been set up, and not just HSI, it's been Animals Asia that's done great work, and Duo Project. Duo Project is another fantastic organization. They set up an animal welfare center. They set up educational programs to teach people about animal care, because they don't know. They don't have that history like us of having pets. They don't. It's very, very recent. It's only been 12 years that people are allowed to have pets in urban cities.
Oh,
So,
wow.
yeah.
So the way they look at animals, and that's why they kind of laugh at us and say, when we say, oh, how could you eat a pig? How could you eat a dog? And they say, well, how can you eat a pig or a cow? It's the same thing. And we're like, oh, no, it's not the same, but they haven't had the opportunity to have pets. So
No.
I know cousins and stuff that don't like, they're, oh, animals are dirty. Because as children, they weren't allowed to have animals, and they look at them.
Yeah. And children are scared of dogs, and often that's the problem. Like large breed dogs are not allowed in cities. Only in rural areas can you have a large sized dog to be a guard dog or something. So they're afraid. They've never seen it. They've never interacted with dogs, so it's all new. Yeah.
That's very interesting.
Yeah.
Maybe we should go on to the next clip because we have quite a few to show.
Yes.
Let's see.
Basically, at that point in time, there were people already in China, obviously, who knew, first of all, eating dog meat, especially if you see the conditions in which these dogs are kept, is such a health risk, not only to their own citizens, but to anyone who travels globally, as you can see with the whole pandemic we've just gone through.
Yeah.
But the problem is even though they came forward and tried to make some change, dog meat is a big business and there's a lot of money. And you know as well as I do, when there's money, things don't happen so quickly.
No.
So unfortunately, whether CNN got involved, whether there really was no change made at all at that point, and things just went on as business as usual.
And do you know these Chinese legal experts? Because they sound wonderful. I love them.
I have to tell you, so I have quite a few connections in China at this point at some rescues and some other places that I talk to. And they've sent me videos and they've given me information. But it's so difficult because I would love to take all of these things and just put them everywhere and anywhere that I could have people see them. And I can't. They are in such fear that if anyone ever knew that they were recording these things, or if they would be considered traitors of their own country.
Yeah.
And it's, again, they don't live like we live in this free place of, okay, I can record this and send it to you, Jade, and it's not a big deal.
I get messages, does not really exist.
Yeah, I get messages with like blacked out lines and lines if it has a name or if it has, because they're just so scared of exposing anyone else or causing any harm to anyone. So this is why it's so difficult. You'll never really know who the experts are. You'll never, because people don't come out.
They don't want to be known.
They're afraid. And I get it. I really do get it. But this is part of what the fight has been to be able to really put an end to this, is that you really can't get people to stand up in that country for what they believe.
Out of fear.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Incredible. You hear those stories about other things, people being afraid to speak out, but never thought about it in that sense. But a lot of people make money off of the dog meat trade. And they have henchmen that can do their dirty work. They can hire people to harm people. So it is frightening, and that makes it really difficult.
Yeah, especially those with family. I mean, there's a lot of Chinese activists that are as against this as we are over here. But imagine having a family, you need your job, you cannot afford to be in prison, and this is what we're talking about, to oppose the police, like police randomly kill dogs in the street in full public view. They can't intervene because they risk going, to jail and being arrested. It's very difficult. It's a very difficult environment, and it's hard for us to relate because free speech is something that we've had for many years in this part of the world, and over there it's not the case. And I will add to that since I started the podcast, I've approached, I've gotten to know some Chinese activists and smaller rescue groups that are native to China, and I've wanted them to come on the show and talk about their insight, their stories, the challenges they face, but none of them are willing to do it. They're just afraid. They're afraid of retaliation.
Like not a voice. Could you? Disguise their
Oh,
voice?
I've thought about that, but I guess it's also there's the other side of it is that it's a language barrier. So I have friends that are willing to translate, but it's a bit harder. But it's a shame. But on that note, I do want to say that one of my upcoming guests, who's native Chinese and who supports one of the shelters in China, now lives in Switzerland. And her English is not so bad, so she agreed to be on the show. But we're working out, she has to translate every question I send to her and try to write it back in English. So it's going to take a bit of time, but she's determined to be on the show. So
that's great. We have a couple of guests just giving some comments. Kim Delgado is giving us a sad face, and everybody is. Oh, here's a good one. Where's the website to donate? Okay.
To China Rescue Dogs, or?
I'm assuming that's all she wrote. So Debbie, can you tell us which rescue you would like to, and put it in, and I'll put it up there. So let's just go through a few more. Prayers for China, devastating news. I had not heard about this. Yes, Carol, we'll spread the word if you would, because a lot of people haven't heard.
Yeah, it's pretty sad. Yeah, it's pretty sad. Yeah, we feel for the Chinese people. It's like, I can't imagine going through a typhoon, and that part of the world, it's a common thing. I think between July and September, that's typhoon season, but this is a different type of level of flooding. So yeah,
and it's interesting to hear that people are taking a love-based approach to working with the villagers and stuff, because it is a different culture, it is a different upbringing, it is a different way of looking at animals. In fact, in our own country, we have this disparity and speciesism, so that makes us more compassionate and understanding. But I'm glad that's the approach. There are so many groups, Animal Asia, but I also want to mention Gentle Giants nonprofit, because they're working with not in the dog meat trade, but working with the villagers with elephants, doing the same thing. And that's so important. But we better keep on the subject and go through and find another video. Let's go to the next clip.
Ask you about this festival. I never heard about it before I saw your website. A survey conducted with over 6,000 Chinese respondents reveals the lack of understanding on animal welfare. And activists were able to convince local officials to cancel the Jinhua Dog Meat Festival. Never heard about this festival.
So I will tell you this, the Jinhua Festival actually is a tradition. They have had that festival probably for, I want to say, about 600 years back it dated. Like, it's been a big thing for them. But the difference was, and I think maybe the people of YULIN may have picked up from that when they thought of doing what they were doing. Theirs was done in autumn, not in the summer. And theirs was done for a 3-day period. Now, again, during those 3 days, there were thousands of dogs killed, and it was horrible, I'm sure. But the one thing I will say about them, as opposed to dealing with YULIN, is they had enough sense that when the pressure came down and they looked at how people were viewing them as a culture and as a people, that they said it wasn't worth it for them to have this festival for those 3 days. Get into a little bit more of that later about how, China began eating dog and all the other things that go along with it. But theirs was actually truly a traditional type thing. It doesn't say much about whether the animals were tortured in the same fashion as which they do for YULIN. It's very hard to find a lot of that background. In fact, some of the information I actually got from an elderly Chinese woman who was willing to sit down.
Or in China?
In China.
Okay.
In China.
Wow.
A friend of mine was able to contact someone there who was well into her, she's about 92, and and she actually has a dog now as a pet and just loves her dog to death.
Oh, wow.
And
it's possible.
Spoke very candidly about how she felt about the dog meat trade and about where traditions had come from and why they were the way they were.
Wow, I was just reading your notes on this, that a huge number of people put pressure, and it worked. They publicized, China began to publicize the issue and firmly denounced it, and it did cause them to stop the festival. But they still eat dog, and they're still allowed to eat dog meat, right? I mean, it's not been outlawed.
Well, yes, but I guess that festival, you know, I guess for us, what's the most insulting part of the YULIN Dog Meat Festival is it's like a celebration, yet dogs are being brutalized and, you know, tortured, frankly, you know. But this festival, it actually is dated back into tradition. It has a long history. And it's on the east coast of China. And, you know, like she mentioned, it lasted about 3 days. But they actually, it was in August 2011 that they decided to just end the festival. And they saw the global outcry about on YULIN, and they decided, you know, we don't want to have this image, you know, internationally, because it is like kind of a stain, right? And YULIN Dog Meat Festival, for those, you know, I'm assuming most people know at this point, but it was never a tradition. It's never been a tradition. It was really started out of a commercial endeavor because dog meat sales were waning. And also the dog meat traders in that area, they worked with the government of YULIN, and they said, you know, what, we can bring tourists, you know, if we host this festival. Right. And so the government was kind of on board. I mean, to be honest, they wanted to look better in the eyes of the national government. And, you know, if your economy is not doing so well, you know, YULIN is a very unexciting part of the country. Not much is happening there. So it was a way to draw interest. And, you know, lo and behold, a lot of foreign tourists actually attended the festival. It was like kind of a delicacy for them to feast on the dead bodies of dogs. And it's horrible.
Tortured. I mean, gosh.
It's absolutely horrible. And the global outcry, I want to just clarify something, because a lot of people are like, you know, why be so outraged, you know, over dog meat, you know, when we eat pigs, cows, and chickens here. And yes, it is speciesism. It's a reality. These are societal norms. We were taught that, you know, there are animals that you eat at the dinner table, and then there are animals that you pet, you know, over here in Western culture and a little bit everywhere. But what we are denouncing is, you know, the horrific abuse that these dogs endure. It's, you know, there's nothing about the dog meat trade that is humane. The transportation alone is horrific. These dogs are crammed tightly in cages. They break their limbs to fit as many dogs as possible. Yes. It's a commodity for them. It's just a way to make money. And the traders that are involved in the dog meat are really just in it to make money. They don't care. They have no sympathy for the dogs. And, you know, also the festival did highlight some practices where dogs are boiled and skinned alive. They're boiled alive. They're blowtorched alive. They're dismembered alive. And so it's no wonder. I mean, I would be more concerned if there was no global outrage. Can you imagine a world where people are indifferent to dogs being boiled alive? I mean, that would be very scary, and it would be it would set us back in our goal to have animal liberation. Total animal liberation. A vegan world will only exist if we have compassion for animals. And so for some people it starts with dogs and cats, but it will, you know, gradually open their hearts to other animals once they see the cruelty. I truly believe that.
Yeah, I agree. And I think, you know, we have to be compassionate, but at the same time, we have to be firm in our resolve. And, you know, it isn't just a matter of animal agriculture destroys more than just the animals, which is horrific. And they are, I mean, the lives they lead are miserable from the moment they're born. You know, I'm mistaken people that, you know, factory farming is a little bit okay. It's all horrible and it all has to change. It's just, how do we get to these people? But it seems like some breakthroughs are happening. Should we go to the next clip that we have here? Yeah, and I think the fact that this starts to get into COVID and how people are starting to, the light bulbs going on, the connection. But still, we have many in denial. So let's jump into that next section now.
Chinese Ministry of Agriculture later declaring dogs as companion animals and not on the approved post-COVID-19 National Livestock
And
Catalog.
when initially I heard the news, I was almost in tears because I was like, finally, progress. But then I read the document and I said, you know what? I don't have enough faith in the Chinese government, to stick to their word to begin with. I can tell you this. So after research and putting together some of my own information, years back when the SARS outbreak happened, all the wet markets in China were shut down. All of them shut down.
Yeah.
And lo and behold, wasn't long after, they opened them all back up and said, you know what? We feel as though we have this under control now. And that's my fear when you see any of this happening, like whether it's COVID. So COVID is actually part of the SARS virus. It's an evolved SARS virus, basically.
Yeah.
So here we are again in the history repeats itself pattern, and you would think that at this point we've learned something. We've heard like Dr. Fauci out of the US say, I don't know how many times, that the animal-human interface, is just so dangerous and so deadly, and how disease spreads through that.
Yeah.
There's no reason. And he actually said it baffled his mind how these wet markets could even be open. Like he just didn't understand it.
Yeah.
Ultimately, as you know, we elect who goes to the Senate. Who goes
in this
to the
country,
Congress.
we do.
So,
really.
Absolutely. So if there's enough interest and enough pressure on our senators, on our Congress people, and we say, you know what, you're up for re-election. And unless something gets done, unfortunately, I'm going to have to go a different direction. We have to make it where animal welfare and what happens to these animals becomes part of the forefront as something rather than on the back burner. Yeah. Because as we see now, like you just said, until the COVID thing actually happened, no one really had an understanding of how animal welfare could really impact, not, your health, our global economy.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, animals basically, from where this came from, shut down the world pretty much.
Absolutely. It shut the whole world down.
So if there's ever a time to have this conversation, now is it. Yeah. Now is the time to just lean on all these public figures and say, you need to stand up for us and do something to keep us safe.
Yeah.
That is so right on. And I like the way you really got excited there. And you said, shut the whole world down.
She's so well-spoken. Nadine DeLeo, she's the one who started Let No Dog Die in Vain. And as she explained to me during that podcast, she started a business, a corporation called Catalyst for Change Advocacy Group, because she is in talks with politicians. And she said, I can't go to a politician and say I work for Let No Dog Die in Vain, because they start to think of her as like some animal rights crazy person, or, it kind of puts her in a different light, to them. So by having a corporation, they take her seriously, and, she's extremely well-spoken and well-educated. So she's a great advocate for this cause. And, thank you, Nadine. If you're watching tonight, we really appreciate you.
And this is the website, letnodogdieinvain.org, that you can go to. And there we see, like you were speaking about before, dogs packed in their legs broken, horrific things happening to them. And it just makes everyone so sad. But luckily we have these people that are working, and we just want to be hopeful that change comes soon.
Yeah. And speaking of COVID, I, for one, I work in finance. I work with people that are definitely not animal rights activists, and definitely not vegan. And I would hear them complain about confinement. I'm confined, I'm in lockdown. And I would tell them, listen, do you want to know what confinement is? I'll show it to you. And I would send them like pigs in a gestation crate. You have no right to complain, we are extremely privileged, especially in this part of the world. And so I think it's an opportunity for people to open their eyes and to realize the way we interact with animals is extremely unhealthy. It's extremely abusive, and it's going to lead to COVID-19 and then some. It's going to continue. These pandemics will never end unless and until we change our relationship to animals. And, as you know, Lindsey and I, we want total animal liberation, and hopefully everyone on this panel does want the same thing. But, COVID-19 is an opportunity to speak to your politicians, to speak to your local representative, and to say, listen, I want you to do something about this. These wet markets, they have to be shut down, because as I learned that there's over 80 wet markets in New York State alone. And it's crazy. You can go buy a chicken. I mean, it's horrific. It's horrific. Yeah. So animal abuse happens everywhere. We all know that. But, it's time to take a stand, and unless we do, nothing's going to change.
Yes, I agree. I think we're going into now some new clips with another, a gentleman named John.
Yes, John Barocas of Canine Global Rescue. I had him on for my first live podcast. I've never done it live because a lot of sympathy to you, because it's always a little bit, scary to be live. But we did a live podcast on the CDC ban because it was breaking news, and we wanted to cover why this ban was put in place.
Great. Let's go ahead into the clip.
Obviously illicit operations, people running this as a business or trying to deceive the public. What would you say are ways that you can prevent yourself from being frauded by such an organization?
Well, the first one is ask them for references in the United States.
Okay.
Ask them for somebody who adopted one of their dogs. That you can talk to in the United States, an American, not a Russian, not somebody from that country, but an American. Verify that they actually received the dog in the time, the money was sent, the dog was released, the dog came healthy. Talk to if they are legitimate, they will give you references. They will say, Joe Blow in Pennsylvania. Here, call him.
And it's not Dimitri. My friend Dimitri will vouch for us.
Right, and that's why I always say get two at least.
Yeah,
get two.
That's like a good idea. And also, like you mentioned before, is ask to see the dog. Like ask questions, and if they're not responding,
right.
Well,
if the dog is in their possession at that time, then. If they're going to FaceTime with you, if they are at a shelter, you're going to see it's a shelter.
Yeah.
If they are at their facility, you can ask them to see the entrance of the facility, and to take a tour of the facility with the dogs, because you have many friends who may want to adopt. So
there you go.
Thing, right? So there are a lot of ways before you hand over your money to somebody.
Wow.
Actually, that was the clip that talked about, because maybe we'll play the one that's called What is Behind the CDC Ban, because he explains why this was put in place, and it's been something that's been in.
Let's just, since we've already just looked at this one, I just want to jump in and just give a little background about how do people get, and we'll go into the CDC ban right afterwards, since we saw it, how do people get in contact with these people in the first place? So do you see an ad in the newspaper? How does that all work? Can you explain a little bit more around that?
About the scam operators?
Yeah, the scam. How do people get in touch with people overseas?
It's easy. It's on social media. A lot of people post videos. They're like, I'm a rescue organization. I mean, anyone can do it, right? Like social media, it's free. And what he was explaining is that there's a lot, especially in Eastern Europe, there was a lot of dogs being, flown to the U.S., and it was very questionable, the state of these dogs. They were not healthy, clearly. And, also these people were sending money. They were saying, okay, I want to adopt this dog, but then the dog would never come. And then they'd call and say, what's going on? Or they'd write back and they say, what's going on? And they were like, oh, we're so sorry. The dog finally fell ill and he passed away. We took the money you gave us and used it to try to, recover him or to pay for the health bills, the vet bills. But, unfortunately didn't make it. We're so sorry. And that's it. The people are out of their money. And so it's so important to go with a reputable organization. And at least if you don't have that, or you want to adopt a dog in a certain country, at least ask for references and ask to see the dog and see, does it look like they're telling the truth, or is it like a made up, story?
Well, in a sense, you can do a house visit, because you can ask them to see those, when you go to get a dog and you want to visit the place, or like he said, if it was a sanctuary or some sort of clinic to help them, you would see it right away.
Yeah.
So, but we can go into those clips. I have two more clips. One's about the CDC. One that starts with "What is that the one you want?"
What is behind the CDC ban is the one that
when the dog came to the United States, there were many recorded incidences of dogs that the paperwork did not match what was being said when the dogs came through Customs and Border. And it did not meet the criteria for the dog to come to the US. Many dogs were coming in, I shouldn't say many, some dogs, especially from Eastern European countries, were coming in and they had parvo. They were not of age to come to the United States. CDC, but this all started with Customs and Border.
Yeah.
They recorded all these instances, and there were dogs that were turned away at JFK, at Chicago, San Francisco, Seattle, LA, dogs that were turned away because the paperwork didn't match and they could not verify.
Yeah.
And physically, a lot of these dogs looked sick. They looked unhealthy. So what was happening was they were making reports on these dogs. And as it turned out, there were a lot of groups that were doing this for profit, nothing more. They didn't really care about the welfare of the dog.
No.
They cared about money.
Yeah, so that kind of ties in. But go ahead and go into that a little bit more now.
Well, that's the whole reason for the CDC ban, because they started, it's been at least 2-3 years that U.S. Customs has come across these dogs that are sick, and they're being flown in crates, often together. And the person flying with them is saying, oh, they're family, they're related, that's a mom with her pups. And as it turns out, it was not the case. These dogs are sick. They look sick. And so often also something else that happens that we talked about on the podcast is some rescue organizations, they send dogs with a flight volunteer. And the flight volunteer is not aware, like they don't brief the flight volunteer on the specifics of the dogs. And so when they come into use across the border, like they land, custom officials would ask them, okay, so when was this dog vaccinated? When, what's the age of the dog? All these stats, and they don't know. They're like, oh, I don't know. And so that makes them question. And it's very sad because a lot of these dogs that were flown in from Eastern Europe, or some from South Korea as well, they ended up being detained. They weren't let into the country. They were sometimes months at the airport. No vet care, nothing. And so imagine being in a crate like that. I would hope that, airport officials would at least walk them and give them proper.
You mean they stayed
water.
in the crate for months?
Months, because they were investigating who is this organization. A lot of them died. A lot of them died because, I mean, it's horrible. And so,
I want to jump in because Magnus is here, so we want to let him in. And we've only got a little bit more time, but we're going to continue with the CDC. We have another clip, but let's bring him in. Hi, Magnus. How are you?
Hi. How are
Can
you?
you hear us?
I'm good. Thank you.
Yeah,
Hi,
we're just
Magnus.
finishing up with the CDC story, and then we're going to get to you in just a moment, but we want to continue with this. So let's watch the second clip, and then if you want to comment on it as well, you may.
Sure.
How would you revise the ban to be more fair towards the good people that are running legitimate operations?
So the question that I was actually asked by one of the people at the CDC was, if you were going to do change, what would you change? Who would you change on the list? And I said, well, one, I would go back through these countries and see if there has been a recorded actual case of rabies within the last 20 years. There has been no reported case in Jordan of dogs with rabies. Why is Jordan on this list? There has to be specific regulations in place. You can't just do a blanket ban and say we're gonna ban all these countries.
My other thought on that was you take, for example, Soy Dog, you take, for example, Canine Global Rescue, and you can present records of all these dogs that were flown into the US with zero problems, clean as a whistle record, and those should be exceptions, like
an organization should be able to apply.
Yes.
Exception, not an individual, an organization.
Wow. So I'm going to let you each jump in on that. And we just want to introduce Magnus, Kuhn, Purdy. I hope I said your name correctly. Is that right?
You did.
Are the founder of a Better Spot Foundation, right? Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
So let's let Jade comment, and then I'll have you comment if you'd like to on the subject of that video. Go ahead, Jade.
Well, the CDC ban, as you know, China Rescue Dogs has sent letters, and John of Canine Global Rescue mentioned it has to be revised. And of course, the Center for Disease Control was intending to revise the ban, but they're giving it a year. It's in place for a minimum of 12 months. And, they're trying to set up proper screening protocols to try to avoid a rabies case, which is understandable. We agree that there should be a ban to prevent these illicit operations from flying dogs into the US that are sick. But it needs to be revised. And like you said, it's very simple. You go to a country, if that country has never had a case of rabies, then why would it be on the list, And also what we thought is certain organizations that have a long track record of flying dogs perfectly safe, always, doing things by the book, should be exceptions to the rule, to this ban, and they should be able to fly dogs and, be applying. At least they should be able to apply for an exception. We can't hear you.
There we go. Magnus, would you like to address that? I know you popped in at the end. If not, that's okay. We'll just continue with you, but I want to give you a chance.
Well, the ban is just, it's just to prevent dogs coming in that, probably, they're just trying to make it a little bit more difficult for people to rescue dogs. That's what it is.
Why is that?
Well, the government, they actually need to step in and help rescues, with what we're trying to do, right? We're doing a humanitarian mission. We're saving lives. Most of us are doing it properly. And it's very, very costly for us to do the job right. And, unfortunately, there's some organizations out there that, they've cut corners. They've made it, a little bit more difficult for the rest of us to get in there and do what we're doing, right? Because it's not easy, number one, going out there and getting these dogs out of these dangerous zones. And it's just the options for us is either life or death. If we don't do it, these dogs are dead. So sometimes,
many times people have to risk their lives, your lives.
Exactly, yeah. And people have already risked their lives, their safety, their freedom. They've there's say no to dog meat. They've actually got caravans of people to stop these dog meat trucks, these illegal dog meat trucks that are shipping all these stolen, kidnapped dogs to their miserable death. And the government isn't there to stop it. It's civilians. It's a nonprofit group. Why is that? Right? I mean, there's definitely should be more accountability for the people we elect into office, to tackle this problem, because it's a huge issue. It's not just, here's just a few dogs, or that's just a few cats. We don't really care too much about these. No, it's not that. These are lives. These are lives that are on this planet that we are put here to protect. And, they serve us in so many positive ways. Like, they fulfill and enrich our lives. They make this world, less empty. And, there's these governments that just turn a blind eye and sweep the problem under the rug, where there's these criminals and terrorists that are destroying, what is even more possibly more perfect than humans.
I think the key is to make more and more people aware and known, and that's what we're trying to do on the show. And actually, we have a call to action at the bottom of the screen. I want to remind people one more time that they can help. Just as you are saying, Magnus, the government needs to be called accountable. We, the people, speak to our elected officials. We ask them to take action, and there is an opportunity. Please make the phone call and urge them to the CDC to stop the ban. And it's being voted on today, and you can make that phone call and leave a message. You probably won't reach anyone, but leave those messages. Those count. They do count those. I did some yesterday for another cause, and I got emails back today saying that they had received my information. So, but now we only have a few more minutes left. I do want to talk about your organization a moment, Magnus, and tell us how you got started with a Better Spot Foundation. I'm going to put up, I'm going to share the screen of your website quickly here while you talk. Go ahead. You're not muted.
Oh, okay, Lindsay. Sorry, I was just waiting for some pictures to be uploaded. I thought that's what you were going to do, but
yeah.
All right, there we go. Yeah, I mean, that's my dog, Sarah. She's a YULIN dog. I went to YULIN on my own in 2016, and it was just shortly after my own dog had died. I didn't really know what I was going to do when I went to YULIN, but I found out when I left that I went there to save my own dog. And I left there with her, and she's pretty much the greatest thing in my life. So, yeah, I mean, she's brought a lot of happiness to me. And, there's so many other dogs that were there and that are there now, that are alive, that haven't been tortured or killed yet. And these dogs, they belong to people out there on this planet. They are somebody's family members. They are somebody's life. And, I just really do not like to see or stand by and let, a bunch of terrorists kill off these animals that, mean and matter so much to people out there. A lot of people, they don't realize that those dogs are theirs, but this is why we saved them. Yeah, that's Taro. He's still for adoption. He's still available.
He's
for adoption.
gorgeous. He's gorgeous.
Yeah, he's really these are amazing dogs. They're very calm. They're very wise for just their 8 months. They're puppies, but you can tell when you hold them that they're just not like they've just been through a lot. Every dog out there is very special. There's no dog that matters more than another. Some dogs, they're just harder to rescue than others. And these dogs here was like, you have to go to hell. YULIN is hell. It's hell for dogs. So, you know, for these dogs, and our mission is just going into hell and getting these dogs out of hell, because this is how it is like for a lot of animals out there. They don't get to choose where they're born into. And I feel like it's our duty and obligation. If we really love them, we'll go and save them no matter where they are. All right. So whether they're in hell, whether they're, you know, down the block, whether they're in the shelter, some dogs, they're in hell just in the home that they're in, because some of these dogs have really shitty owners. So, you know, hopefully we and people as a whole are able to look after these animals more than we're doing right now, because there's a lot of them out there that's in danger. And you know, my mission and my charity and my foundation that I started goal is to help as many dogs as we can out of those situations.
So people, if they want to donate or even just come visit your website and learn more, it's can you say the website? And I'm going to put it up in the
well, we're still working on our website. I just started the foundation this year.
You have a Facebook page, right?
Yeah, I'm talking to some developers now to get the website going. Yes. It's not really at the top of our list at the moment, or at top of our main goal and mandate at the moment is saving dogs, and whatever money we have left, because we're completely nonprofit, we'll put it towards the website if we can. Otherwise, you know, the dogs will have to come first.
Yeah.
And I just want to mention the two dogs that you showed, the white one and more like the golden one, they're both up for adoption, Magnus?
Yep, they were right from YULIN. They were right from the dogs before them and the dogs after them that were in the same cage that we got out. Those dogs, unfortunately, are dead. These dogs were the ones, you know, it was a very hard choice to pick, right? So you just got to do what you can do.
And they're from YULIN. They're from YULIN 2021. They were just brought. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Wow. So it's still going on, and it's just like we only have like 2 minutes left. I'm just going to ask you guys each to answer this question. Is there hope? Is there hope? Can we end this?
Of course we can.
Just 1 minute.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be doing this.
I'll let you end. Magnus. Let's start with Jade. Go ahead, Jade. 1 minute.
Absolutely. I've conducted, like I said at the beginning, over 38 interviews with interventionists or nonprofits that are working in China and Vietnam and those countries with a prevalent dog meat trade. And all of them are hopeful. It will end. It's just, you know, it's not going to happen overnight. It's not going to happen overnight. And we have to have the long view, the long picture. We have to keep at it. We have to keep asking for change to happen. And we have to be compassionate. And I guess one of my messages is for activists to really unite together. It's so important. Like, it doesn't matter. Stop judging others. You know, if someone's vegan, non-vegan, work together. The animals really need us to work together. And so if you, you know, embrace this cause, well, then please, you know, share it, you know, with your community. And we can't stop fighting. I mean, these animals depend on us. And I am hopeful that I will see the end of it in my lifetime. So
awesome. Thank you. And I do want to just jump in quickly and say that Stop YULIN podcast has some upcoming events. And you're going to have Beagle Freedom Project on, Shannon Keith. The Dog Meat Professionals are coming up on July 30th. Jane UnChained, I believe. Is that how you say it?
James Hyams, he's a journalist, and The Dog Meat Professional is based on a book and a full-length documentary. It's the most in-depth documentary ever done on the dog meat trade in South Korea. So it's going to be an amazing show.
Great. Okay, Magnus, we got 1 minute left. Actually, we're a little over, but go ahead. 1 minute. How are we going? This is going to end. Give us your best minute, please.
Sorry? What was that?
Tell people, we have 1 minute left. Tell people what you think of. Is this going to end? Are we going to be able to do this?
Yeah, of course it's going to end. It has to, right? I mean, it's only been a little bit over a decade since YULIN Dog Meat Festival has actually started. It's not a 100-year thing. So we've got to squish this while we can, because the longer it continues to go on, the more influence and room it has to expand, and we can't let it get bigger and than it already is, because it's already killing millions of dogs a year. So yeah, I mean, it can end once all of us kind of get in there and step up. We've all got a role to play, and we just gotta take it on and do it.
Yes, and speaking of ending, we have to end this broadcast, unfortunately. Thank you both so much for being on. Folks, if you can, please make that phone call and do share this video out. That will be so helpful. Watch Jade's podcast, visit Magnus's site, A Better Spot Foundation, on Facebook. It's called, say that again, say the name again of your Facebook page, Magnus, real quick.
A Better Spot Foundation.
Yes, but the Facebook, what's your handle on Facebook?
Magnus Kuhn Purdy.
Okay, great. All right. Thanks, folks, for watching, and we'll catch you next time.
Thank you.
Thanks, Lindsay.
Bye.
You, Jade. Bye.